And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Sunday morning flying weather graphic looking like this. IFR here up over the central interior, some more IFR over the north slope, and then a couple areas of IFR here on Alaska Island and then back toward Atka. Real narrow there. Most of the western central Aleutians, marginal VFR, and then marginal VFR up over the western Bering. Good VFR, as you can see here over the eastern and southeast Bering, right into Bristol Bay. Right across southern Alaska here, good VFR on down the southeast coast. And for the afternoon, some IFR here persisting up there in the Tanana Valley, back to the northwest, across the Kobuk Valley, into the western mountains there, and along the northwest coast, no attack in those areas. Marginal VFR, Seward Peninsula, VFR up over the northeast interior to the eastern Arctic coast. Staying VFR south of the Alaska Range, Copper River Basin, all of southern Alaska here from Nunivak Island in across the southeast coast. And then some IFR, a little more widespread here, Adak and Atka area, and up to about the Pribilofs, and then a narrow band here coming eastward. You can see tomorrow morning just coming into Shimianatu, and then that pushes eastward a little bit there in the afternoon. Otherwise, staying pretty good here for the southeast coast, Gulf of Alaska, right through Monday morning as well. Really no change. Any lower conditions will be along and north of the Alaska Range with possible IFR here over the Koyukuk Valley down in toward still possibly Fairbanks area and or to the north in the mountains to the north there. With the Upper Tanana Valley, some areas of marginal VFR, 40-mile country. Good VFR here in the west. Again, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, Gulf of Alaska looking good. A couple of bands of IFR for the Aleutians. And then that area shifting eastward here, that southwest flow now carrying IFR northeastward and then pushing it into Norton Sound, southern coast of the Seward Peninsula, Bering Strait area, and into portions of the Yukon Delta, and also that southwest flow upslope areas of the DeLong Mountains there, and maybe the western Brooks Range, downsloping creating VFR for the central north slope areas. Good VFR now, even north of the Alaska Range, all the Alaska Range into the VFR area there, probably into Nenana, and maybe even Fairbanks, and then possible marginal VFR in the hills to the north, and definitely marginal for the Yukon Flats, but good VFR down to the south. Passes, Anatufik and Adigan, go VFR for the day on Sunday. Lake Clark and Merrill, another VFR day coming up for rainy as well, and windy. Could be marginal VFR, lower conditions will be on the northern entrance, otherwise VFR. Isabel, optimistically, VFR, like today. Mentasta, VFR. Tanita, VFR. Portage, wide open, either approach, VFR. And for Chilkoot and White, good VFR. Freezing level at the surface here, actually down south of all of mainland Alaska, cutting across Kodiak there and then in across the central panhandle. 2,000 feet, about the same, maybe a little farther south here into the Gulf of Alaska. And then that southwest flow here carrying warm air, 12,000 feet over the western Aleutians. And with that southwest jet here, got area of considerable moderate rime icing here, mostly over the western Bering Sea, extending down, narrow band there in the western Aleutians, some of that coming up and then spilling in along the northwest coast here. Icing free to the east, to the south, and to the southeast. And for the jet stream, ridging out through here, there's that strong flow out of the southwest here, 110 to 135 knots coming up and over the top of that ridge. North-northwest winds are mostly northerlies up to 125 knots here over the east central interior, and about 110 knots blowing down across Prince William Sound. And then that taking a turn to the east here across the Queen Charlotte's, clipping the southern panhandle at about 110 knots. 9,000 feet, west-northwest, or actually north-northwest winds here, 35 to 40 knots over the interior, lighter for the panhandle. And back out to the west, that's where the strongest winds are, 60 to 80 knots out of the southwest. And at 3,000 feet here, head of that front, right about in this area, got 70 knot southwest winds over the western Bering Sea, diminishing under high pressure along the southwest part of the state. Southwesterlies 40 knots there, creeping in toward the Seward Peninsula and the western Arctic coastal areas. And then northwest 40 knots, just clipping Barter Island area up here over the eastern Arctic coast. Pretty light and variable over the interior, on down into the Gulf and the Panhandle. And for turbulence, moderate chop or moderate turbulence here from the northwest coast down to St. Lawrence Island, and then light to isolated moderate turbulence for the eastern Arctic coast there, especially for smaller aircraft, and some mechanical turbulence here for the northern Panhandle over to about Yakutat.